one. All right. So big number W is the Nation of Islam. So Nation of Islam is an American branch of Islam. It's an American branch of Islam that is specifically for the African American community. So it's a Black-centric branch of Islam, and its founder. Well, he's not actually the founder, but he's the most important member, most important founder. You could put him founder for now. Technically, he's not the founder, but he's an early leader. Is Elijah Muhammad? It's the gentleman over here with the hat. Elijah Muhammad founds this organization called the Nation of Islam, and he builds this religion based on the idea that Christianity, excuse me, it's based on the idea that Christianity is a tool of white people, and that Christianity is a tool of white people used to oppress Black people, and that Christianity itself is like a corrupted faith. It's like a corrupted faith, and it only serves as a tool of oppression. It says Christianity is an explicitly white thing, is what he says. And he says that whites use it to teach white people how to look at themselves as superior and to tear down and hold down people of color. Okay? Elijah Muhammad even goes further than that. Elijah Muhammad goes as far as to say that white skin, like blue eyes, light hair, white skin, is the mark of the devil. And that when the devil interacts with humanity, he turns humans from dark to light. And so the lighter your features are, the more inhabited by the devil you are. Okay? Now, he teaches this religion, and this religion obviously is going to become popular amongst Black people. Obviously, it doesn't get a lot of white converts to this religion, right? Shocking, right? Not very many white people want to join, but it grows quick. From 1952, it's only 500 members. In 10 years, it grows to 30,000 members. So that's pretty fast. It's one of the fastest growing religions in the United States, right? And he basically says that Islam is the true faith, and that Islam is the faith of people of color. It's the faith of Africa, the continent Africa, and therefore it's the faith that is truly in the hearts of Africans, and that when they were captured and taken as slaves, the Christians forced that out of them and forced them to take on Christianity, which teaches inferiority. Okay? Do you guys have questions about this, Nation of Islam? You should have questions. Is it because you don't know anything about Islam? How many of you guys, give me on a scale of 0 to 5, 0 to 5, with 5 being you feel confident enough to take a test on Islam right now, 0 meaning you know basically nothing, right? How much do you know about Islam? Okay, yeah. All right, so you guys didn't learn about it in your World Civ class last year? You should have. A little bit?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Like basic religions.
Okay. All right. Well, if you know about Islam at all, you're going to know that this branch of Islam is not really in line with what most Muslims teach, right? Most Muslims around the world don't believe this stuff. And in fact, Elijah Muhammad believes that he is directly talking to God, and that God is directly telling him to interpret the religion this way. Right? This causes a conflict with the worldwide Islam, because most Muslims around the world believe that you don't talk to God, right? The Prophet Muhammad was the seal of the prophets. He was the last prophet, and that was the last time God was going to talk to humans, right? And so here's Elijah Muhammad saying that he is getting new revelations from God. This causes conflict with global Islam, because global Islam is like, they're like, I'm not sure about you guys. You guys, I'm not really sure how Muslim you are. the most famous convert to the Nation of Islam is this gentleman right here, Malcolm X. Malcolm X. Okay, so Malcolm X, let's get some Malcolm X biography. Okay, Malcolm X grows up in Iowa. He's from the American North. He grows up in Iowa. His father is murdered when he's a child. His father is murdered by the KKK when he's a child. His father is run over in a car, and it turns out later that that car was driven by KKK members, and they ran him over, killed him. His mother, because she's grieving so much, she actually gets institutionalized. White doctors say that his mother's gone insane, and they put his mother into an insane asylum, and they pump her full of a bunch of drugs that basically just fries her brain. Now, I don't normally spend a lot of time on people's childhood, right? Not usually, right? But in the case of Malcolm X, his childhood story is an important story because his childhood story is a story of white supremacists killing his father and the white doctors taking his mother away from him, right? So in a way, Malcolm X's childhood story is the story of Black America. And Malcolm X grows up to become a petty criminal, right? He bounces from like house to house, like living with aunts and stuff. And he lives in New York for a while. He lives in Michigan for a while, and he gets himself arrested. He's doing just, crimes and stuff, and he's getting arrested. While he's in prison, he meets a bunch of Nation of Islam people, and that's where he converts. And he drops his name Little. His name was Malcolm Little. That's his birth name, Malcolm Little. But he drops that because he says that Little is not his name. Little is his slave name. Little is the name of the man who owned the plantation, who owned his ancestors. Little is the name that has been forced upon him by white America. His name is X, meaning he has no name. His name was stolen from him, right? When his family were taken from Africa, his family was stripped of their culture, stripped of their faith, stripped of their name, stripped of everything. And he has no history, he has no name, and that's why he's X, right? Like X, like the variable, right? Like solve for X. That's why he's Malcolm X. So he converts, and he's going to become, Malcolm X is a fiery speaker, right? He is one of the best speakers in American history, right? He gives these speeches of Black power and Black empowerment, where he basically redefines, where are we? Malcolm X redefines something called Black power. And Black power is the philosophic idea that Black people are inherently powerful in and of themselves, and that in order for them to stand up for themselves, they need to reject white definition. Okay? They need to reject white definition. This means the white people tell you that you're a minority, the white people tell you that you're dumb, the white people tell you that you are not equal, the white people tell you that you're weak, the white people tell you that you can't ever rise up, right? He says you need to reject that. We talked about segregation, we talked about like the psychological trauma that segregation has on people, right? It's not just keeping someone at the back of the bus. It's not about the bus. What is it really about?
People having power to say you have to sit in the back of the bus.
100%, right? It's not about the seat. It's not about the service. It's not about the thing you're segregating. It's about power. And Black power, the philosophy of Black power, rejects that dynamic. And it says, you don't have power over us. I define myself. Black America defines itself. Black people define themselves, right? Just because white people tell you that blue eyes and blonde hair is beautiful, it doesn't mean that it is, right? Just because they tell you that white men are the rich and the powerful and the intelligent and the smart, right? It doesn't mean they are. This is this idea of black power. Now, the Nation of Islam and black power, they get wedded together. Where the Nation of Islam is like this religious kind of philosophy, black power is this political philosophy, and Malcolm X is going to be the champion of both. Okay? In 1964, so this is the time of the Voting Rights Act. Okay, so Martin Luther King has risen up with his organizations. They're doing these protests. They're doing all the demonstrations, right? JFK's been assassinated. Malcolm X goes on his pilgrimage. In 1964, he goes on his pilgrimage. Danny, do you know what it means for a Muslim to go on a pilgrimage? Do you know what that means?
So isn't that when they go to Islam and
They
like go to one of the big temple there
Mm-hmm.
or Jerusalem? Oh,
Now, do you know what city it is? Emma or Sam, do you guys remember?
I think it's
Jerusalem.
Mecca. Mecca, I think.
Yeah, it's Mecca. Emma's right. It's Mecca. So they go to Mecca and Medina. They go on a pilgrimage. And what else can you tell me about the Islamic pilgrimage? Emma, what else can you tell me about it?
Not really, no.
Okay, Danny, do you know anything else about it?
I know that like there's like a lot of people that go, like there's always like every day there's a bunch of
Millions of people, yeah.
go in there, and they just go to near one and pray. I don't know.
Okay, so he goes on his pilgrimage. The pilgrimage, little p pilgrimage, just means a journey to a holy site, right? So any religion can go on a pilgrimage. But big P pilgrimage, when we're talking about Muslims, is one of the pillars of Islam. It's one of the central teachings that over the course of your life, all Muslims must go on their pilgrimage to Mecca. All Muslims. Now, I need to impose this upon you that this is such a big deal. This is a life-changing event for most Muslims, right? When you go to Mecca, it's not just like a vacation. You're not just like at the beach and stuff, right? It's not that. You're going as a religious pilgrim. You're there for a month. And every day you're going through a different chapter of the Quran and you're acting it out and you're going through the prayer rituals and you're there with a million other Muslims, or actually it's more like 12 million Muslims, right? You're there with millions and millions of Muslims from around the world, every language, every race, every background, right? And as you all go through the prayers, you all advance through this, right? When the Quran tells you how Muhammad left Mecca and went to Medina, the entire crowd walks from Mecca to Medina, right? And then when he returns to Mecca, the entire crowd returns to Mecca. It's an entire month on the calendar. This is a life-changing event, like a once-in-a-lifetime life-changing event, okay? And when Malcolm X goes, initially, the Muslims won't let him in, right? Non-Muslims aren't allowed. And they're like, we don't know about you. This Nation of Islam thing is kind of weird. We're not really 100% on board. But they ask him, and he knows his Quran. He knows his stuff, right? And so they're like, okay, we'll let him go. This becomes a life-changing event for Malcolm, just like it is for almost every Muslim who goes. And he actually changes his name and stuff. But most importantly, he realizes that true Islam is a universal, multiracial, multi-ethnic religion. That Muslims come in every color, right? Muslims come from every part of the world. And he's there with Muslims from Africa, from the Middle East, from India, from Indonesia, and from Europe, right? Including blonde hair, blue-eyed, fair-skinned Muslims, right? There's a lot of Muslims, European Muslims, who are white, right? A lot of them are. And he realizes that Elijah Muhammad is not teaching the true Islam. So when he comes back to the United States, he stops preaching Nation of Islam style Islam, and he starts to preach regular Islam, what we would call Sunni Islam, which is kind of the global standard, right? and he starts to focus on like Black power politics and stuff. And so he's doing political stuff. Now, what do you think Elijah Muhammad is going to think about that?
Not too happy.
Yeah, this is going to cause a huge problem between the two of them, right? It's going to cause a huge problem between the two of them. And in fact, Malcolm X starts to find out more and more stuff about Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm X finds that Elijah Muhammad's been stealing money from the church, stealing money from the mosque, and that he's been cheating on his wife and stuff like that, right? And Islam prohibits you from cheating on your wife. It prohibits you from stealing money. It prohibits you from lying, right? Islam prohibits those things, just like every other religion does. So Malcolm X and Elijah Muhammad are going to actually get in a really big fight with each other. This is going to result in February 1965, Malcolm X is assassinated. February of 1965, Malcolm X is assassinated. He's giving a speech in New York City. And a Black man comes up and assassinates him, shoots Malcolm X multiple times, kills him. And his bodyguards let it happen. His bodyguards, he had bodyguards up there, and when the assassin came at them, the bodyguards, instead of guarding him, stepped aside and let the assassin kill him. Sam, what's your instinct about that? Say, why did the bodyguards let it happen?
They didn't agree, they didn't like the idea of contraring to Elijah,
Okay.
or they were hired by Elijah to paid.
Yeah. So the
them
assassin is Nation of Islam. The guy pulling the trigger, the assassin is Nation of Islam, who is trying to defend Elijah Muhammad. The bodyguards were undercover FBI agents. The FBI had labeled Malcolm X as an enemy of the state, and they had gotten their agents hired in there. And the agents let him die. So this is something called COINTELPRO. Do I have it on here? I don't have it on here. I should have it on here. Let me fix this. All right, so we're going to call it COINTELPRO. Okay. So COINTELPRO means counterintelligence programs. This is where the FBI or the CIA could do this too, right? But it's where they basically get people to be secret spies. Counterintelligence, right? It's where you get somebody hired into the terrorist organization, or get them hired into the criminal organization. Whereas like someone goes undercover into the mafia, or someone goes undercover like into Al Qaeda or something like that. The FBI was treating the Nation of Islam like a terrorist organization, and they were treating Malcolm X like that too. Okay. All right. Attached to, let's make this another letter, X. Oh, dang it. Malcolm X should have been letter X. Oh, that feels like a real lost opportunity. Well, oh well.
Mm-hmm.
And Watts, right? Should have been W. Oh well. Oh well. All right. So I want us to understand something about the civil rights movement. Okay. A lot of times people think of the civil rights movement as inevitable. What does it mean when I say inevitable?
It was gonna happen regardless.
Yeah, it was going to happen no matter what, right? And when we're in 2020 looking backwards, like we can look at it and it looks inevitable, right? Because we're looking backwards. But at the time, it wasn't inevitable. The other thing that we need to do here is we need to also understand that the civil rights movement was not popular. The civil rights movement was opposed at every single moment, every step of the way. It was opposed. White America was deeply, deeply opposed to the civil rights movement, right? White America is so opposed to the civil rights movement that they assassinate Martin Luther King, and they assassinate Robert F. Kennedy, and they assassinate Medgar Evers, and they assassinate multiple of these people. Okay, so by 1965, we've passed the Voting Rights Act, we've passed the Civil Rights Act, but we're going to get a decade of violence breaking out. The worst one right off the bat is Watts riots. This is in Los Angeles, the neighborhood Watts. The neighborhood's name is Watts, and it's in Los Angeles. And this huge riot breaks out because white police officers are assaulting Black men, and that the Black community doesn't want white police officers attacking Black men. Shocking. Sound familiar to you guys? Right? Well, just in case you were thinking that, like, you know, last year's Black Lives Matter protest was like some kind of strange anomaly that's never happened before, I'm here to tell you that that's not the case. I'm here to tell you that this is an old problem that has been around for quite a long time now. Los Angeles erupts into a giant riot, kills 34 people, 3,500 people are arrested, almost all of them Black, and it kills $40 million worth of damage. This riot lasts for 5 days. 5 days, Los Angeles burns itself. Okay? You have to understand this about the civil rights movement, that the civil rights movement is in many ways fueled by riots. It's fueled by violence. The story we tell is a story of Martin Luther King advocating for nonviolence. But the only reason that Martin Luther King stands out as being nonviolent is because so many other acts of violence were happening. For every nonviolent demonstration by Martin Luther King, there's 10 riots that break out, right? This is why King stands out. And this is why today, King ends up looking like some kind of saint, right? Martin Luther King ends up looking like this like perfect saint who is out here, you know, being like perfect person, right? And this is why people are always like, you know, why are we protesting in the streets? We shouldn't protest in the streets. I swear to God, I had somebody tell me, we shouldn't protest in the streets. You should be more like Martin Luther King. And I said, lady, what the hell do you think Martin Luther King was doing? He was protesting in the streets. Like, what do you think he was doing? And I even asked the lady, I said, what do you think he was doing in Birmingham? He was literally protesting in the streets. And she said, well, it's not the same. It's not the same. These protesters are blocking off the roads, and these protesters are causing a backlash. And I said, lady, what do you think is going on with the civil rights movement? I'm like, it's this like weird funhouse mirror version of the civil rights movement that it's like some kind of peaceful agreement that Black and white America got together and shook hands and everyone said, yeah, Martin Luther King's the best. Hooray, right? That's not true. Martin Luther King was labeled as an enemy of the state. The FBI had a file on him. The FBI was infiltrating his organization just like they infiltrated Malcolm X's organization, right? He was listed as a terrorist. He was not a popular person, okay? Which is why we're going to get groups like the Black Panther Party comes up. So the Black Panther Party, they rise up in California. And it's basically Black people, Black men, mostly men, Black men in Oakland, California, who are sick and tired of the cops attacking them. And so they start to bring guns. And they start to carry guns with them, and they start to copy or follow cops, they perform something called cop watch, where they basically just drive around following the cops, and every time the police officers pull a car over, the Black Panther parties get out and watches the cops to make sure that the cops aren't being violent. Right? So many white cops are attacking Black people that the Black Panther Party exists to stop the cops. Just in case you were thinking that this is a modern day problem. Right? The Black Panther Party, of course, gets labeled as a terrorist group in the United States. White people label them as a terrorist group, and they argue, they say, look, we're not the terrorists. The terrorists are the white cops who are killing Black men for no reason. That's the terrorists, right? But white America doesn't believe that. White America, they infiltrate with the FBI, COINTELPRO again. The police turn on these guys. They get these violent clashes with the police, and the police almost always start the fight. That the police are like, why are you cop following us around? And the Black Panthers say, we're following you because we're making sure that the cops aren't being violent. And the cops say, I'll show you violent. And then they attack the guys. Huey Newton and Bobby Seale both end up going to jail. They both end up just rotting in prison, being arrested, dying in prison. California also enacts its first gun laws in 1967, the first gun control laws ever. As soon as Black people start carrying guns, suddenly we need gun control. The 1960s is going to continue with this. Look at all of these. These are race riots in every year of the 1960s. Every single one of these is a different race riot. Okay. 1967 gets called the Long Hot Summer. 136 race riots around the country in 1967. This is after the Civil Rights Act is passed, after the Voting Rights Act is passed. Okay? These 125 riots break out when Martin Luther King is assassinated in 1968. Martin Luther King is assassinated in April of 1968, and riots break out across the country because of this. Robert Kennedy, who was also running for president at the time, he gets assassinated as well. Riots break out in 125 countries. I want you to hold in your mind this idea that the US civil rights movement is not inevitable. It wasn't destined to happen. And it also wasn't some peaceful agreement where white America was like, okay, cool, let's reform things. Yeah, right? White America was deeply, deeply against this. And white America fought it at every single step of the way. Okay? And I think that you can pretty clearly see that a lot of the problems that are in the civil rights movement are still here today. Right? Direct connections to today. Last year, students didn't believe me as much, but this year you guys saw what happened over the summer, right? You guys have a different perspective than the students last year. The students last year, their eyes kind of glaze over and they kind of just think Mr. Veenstra is just being political, right? But this year you guys saw it. Did any of you guys go to the protests over the summer?
I wanted to so bad.
Yeah.
My mom was like, you're gonna die. Terrence,
Yeah,
trying to keep you safe.
your mom wouldn't let you go. I know your mom. Your mom wouldn't let you go. Yeah. I know my daughter wanted to go too, and we went to one. We went to one and it was fine. It was fine.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's a good place for us to stop. I'm gonna stop